The family history. In the late 40s, our parents would have immigrated from Holland and settled in Southern California in the El Monte, Arcadia area, first working for other dairymen and eventually starting his own dairy. And that went on till about 1962 or 3, and then there was a few moves that resulted in us leaving Southern California in 1972 and coming into the San Joaquin Valley to Dinuba. That's where all of us finished up high school, and in 1982, 3 of us started our own dairy called Beek Brothers, and started the process of trying to get out on our own, and that eventually led to a dairy in the Tipton area, then a second dairy in the Tipton area, and a third dairy in the Tipton area, and a selling of the Dinuba place. So that would have all happened between the 80s and, say, 1990s, and that involved Mom and Dad moving into town in Tulare, and us branching out on our own, and the net result of that is what we have going today.
Okay, anyway, my mom and dad actually met over here. They both immigrated from Holland in the late 40s and then met over here and got married. And then, let's see, I was born in 56, then Art was born in 57, Bill was born in 58. Rick was born in 59. Went pretty quick. And then Raymond, when were you born?
62.
62, so he was a little bit late. But anyway, 5 boys. A little bit of a disappointment that it was all boys. It would have been nice to have a girl in there somewhere. But anyway, at the moment we have, my mom has a few daughter-in-laws and some grandchildren that are girls, so that's good. And then, the move up to, when we were in the LA area, started in El Monte, went to Artesia, went to Chino, moved up from Chino in 72, but that was the first, the dairy in Dinuba was the first dairy my dad ever owned before it was all rented dairies, and so it was kind of a big decision. I think at the time the dairy that he was on was available to purchase, but it was an old rundown dairy with wooden fences and stuff like that, and so luckily I think Farm Credit was the lender.
I believe so.
Yeah, he got a loan from Farm Credit.
No, Federal Land Bank.
That's right. It was called Federal Land Bank back then. Got a loan from Federal Land Bank, and actually by the time it was all done, I think the payments weren't a whole lot more than what he had been renting the dairy in Chino for, and that was just kind of the where things kind of got rolling. Up until then it was kind of just existing, just kind of trying to survive. But
how many cows did we move up to?
I think 240 maybe.
240 with the milking and dry.
Yeah.
Well, we might all be in a spot of bother if we don't mention our wives, because behind every farmer of the year, there's a farmeress of the year. We're all married. My wife is Lorraine, Art's wife is Sandra, Doug's wife is Wendy, Rick's wife is Terry, and Raymond's wife is Katie. We've all got a couple of kids. Well, Art's got 4, I got 4. Doug's got 2, Rick's 1, and Raymond's 3. And I currently have 2 daughter-in-laws and 1 son-in-law and 4 grandkids. So that adds a little bit to the current history.
Probably the most important person was Dad, and and he taught us on what we know, and he's passed away, 13 years now?
No, a little longer than that.
So,
98.
Well, how long have you been trucking?
I've been trucking for 25 years, and I like what I do. I love it, but just going different places, seeing different people all the time. It's kind of nice not following your same footsteps. And you got to do a little fishing on the side.
Yeah. Talking about what Dad taught us, I remember one thing. He never taught us how to go to bed at night, but he taught us when we had to get up in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay, so to continue on, I had helping out on the heifer ranch, kind of taking care of that aspect of the dairy. Day-to-day operations, I was maybe not as happy as I could be. And so I think my dad picked up on that and encouraged possibly diversifying out, and that's when we settled in on almonds and walnuts. And so in 1998 we planted our first trees, and then Katie and I bought an existing 160 acres of both almonds and walnuts on that acreage, and started shipping to Blue Diamond and to Crane Walnut. But I do have a lot of fond memories of growing up on the dairy and doing all the chores and also all the fun stuff that goes along with that.
At a very young age, somehow it was conveyed to us. I know Dad was big on this, but you were it almost like it wasn't an option, but you were taught to give back. You were not taught to hang on to stuff or to just keep it for yourself and get more and more. So the idea was you were generous with what you had, and you just needed to say yes when people needed something. And that was something that started very early on in our house, and it's just carried through to what we're involved in today and other things. And giving is kind of like breathing. I always felt like if you stop giving, you stop breathing, and not many people last long when they're not breathing. So I've been taught that at an early age and been blessed because of that.
Yeah, as far as just going back to the family part, we feel very fortunate, really, because you're 5 brothers and our mom. We all still live within. Well, my mom lives the farthest away, which is about 30 miles. So that's pretty good in this day and age, and so it's a great way to grow up, and for our kids to grow up too, because they know all their cousins. They get to see them almost weekly, and church is a big part of that because we go to church every Sunday, and after church we have coffee tight. That's how you say it in Dutch, and you have coffee tight somewhere and get together as a family, and we like being together as a family. So I guess we figure we have a pretty good family, and it's kind of fun to be around. So anyway, and then again about the giving part, realizing where it comes from in the first place, where good Lord has blessed us incredibly, and it's not because we're the greatest guys or the best farmers or the best dairymen. Good Lord takes care of us, and so we try to give back and share what we've been blessed with.
Okay, as far as the giving of time and resources, the Bible says, to whom much is given, much is expected, and that's kind of the reason for volunteering and donating and sitting on boards or going on mission trips or whatever we've done. That's kind of what was ingrained in us. Mom and Dad always took us to Sunday school, church, and that's just what we learned from them, from Mom and Dad and Grandma and Grandpa. It's kind of been in the family history since time began. It seemed like my mom is a Slagers, a Dutch name that goes way back all the way to Holland, and then my dad, of course, Van Beeks. And that's kind of where it all got started, and we're trying to keep up the tradition, not just in our lives, but teach it and pass it on to our kids, which is what we do.
We were lucky enough to go to a Christian school. We started in Chino. Well, actually, you guys started in Artesia. Huh?
Arcadia.
But was lucky enough to go from kindergarten to high school in a Christian school, and 5 kids out of me, 12 years. I mean, Dad spent a lot of money on sending us to Christian school, and I'm thankful for that. And then as far as the family, my wife is she's got one brother, and she gets kind of intimidated because he's always saying, your family's always got, this and that, you always got to do things together, but hey, we're a close-knit family, and we all get along, and which is good. And anyway, I'm just thankful for what I've got and what I've been given. And as far as giving, like they say, it's more blessed to give than to receive. And we just try to be good.
Okay, I'll just hit on the same theme of our family being very close in proximity of everybody, and on Sundays getting together. We enjoy it. We vacation together still, and Katie's family is also all in the Tulare area, and we get together with them. So, in that regard, I feel blessed, as Rick has said. But it also makes me think back to both mom and dad. They left their families to strike out to build a better life for themselves. And I have cousins in Holland, I have cousins in Oregon and Washington, in Virginia, in Florida, in Southern California, where my kids don't know what that's like. Their cousins are all right here, and I think that's a great thing. As far as giving back to the community, I believe that's important for anybody and any family to do. I also think sitting on some of the boards within your industry, the water board, and I'm on the Almond, Huller, and Scheller board, that just gives you another interesting insight to your business.
To do that. Okay.
Those are always fun.
Okay. All right. So, there's 5 of us, and we are probably closer than we even imagined because we take so much for granted. But a story I remember from my youth was that we were in a house, the first house I remember, and that house had 2 bedrooms, so there were 5 of us in 1 bedroom. And then we moved, and that would have been between 2nd and 3rd grade for me. So now we're in a house, it's a little bigger, there's 3 bedrooms, there's 2 boys in 1 room, 3 in the other. I was sleeping with Doug in a double bed, and that was exactly the way I liked it. And one night, apparently he was gone, probably a sleepover at somebody's house, and for the first time in my life that I could remember, I was alone in a room by myself, and I was petrified. And I laid there, not able to sleep, wondering, what should I do? What can I do? And of course, I didn't want to go to mom and dad. I'm almost in 3rd grade now. So I finally made the decision that about 2 o'clock in the morning, I went next door, climbed in bed with my other brothers, and remember instantly going to sleep and waking up in the morning thinking, life's just right. And that was the perspective of a 3rd grader.
Talked a little bit about how having moved up from the Chino area to Dinu in '72, and at the time Dairyman's was the co-op here, and Dairyman's had taken on some new members, and we were some of the new members, and most of the new members were Dutch guys from Chino, and so when we were in Chino, we were just kind of average because we were surrounded by Dutch people, and so we just kind of blended right in. Well, we get to Dinuba, we go to our very first Dairyman's meeting, and we tend to run a little late. We were late, so we got there. Everybody was seated down. They were seated, and they were conducting the meeting. After the meeting, there was lunch, and so we got up to stand in the line for lunch. And I remember looking around at the line and thinking, I think we're the tallest people here. And that was the first time I'd ever thought of myself as tall. So anyway, and I won't say what the nationality of most of the Dairyman's guys was, but anyway, you can figure it out.
Yeah.
That's it.
Years on that tuition at high school level, I do remember that, right?
Yeah. Well, when we moved up in '72, we were milking 200 and some odd cows.
No, it's right at 200.
Anyway,
yeah.
there's 5 boys. Well, Raymond was pretty young yet. But anyway, there wasn't a lot of work to do. And me being number 4 in line, I decided that I was going to make more money from the neighbors, so I was hoeing cotton. Get out here, Jimmy. And I'll never forget Leroy Buller. He was paying me 5 cents an hour more. I think it was like $1.60 an hour. And he paid me 5 cents more from the rest of the crew if I would stay ahead of them so they'd go faster. And they were a bunch of illegals, so I couldn't talk to them anyway. But I kind of branched off from there, and After that, I worked for Richard Hofer, the manure spreader, and he also sprayed insecticides. And when I was a junior in high school, I was his foreman. So I got work experience. I only went to school probably until 10:30 in the morning, and then I went for work experience. So yeah, since then I worked other places from the dairy. I picked up calves for a while, hauled hay for a while, went to Oregon, Washington, and Oregon. I was a sweet corn picker for a summer and harvested grain, and then came back and started hauling hay again, hauled cement powder. Anyway, we've been around a little bit, but I found my my likings in we're in the cow hauling business now and have been for 25 years.
So I do have a story of growing up. It's not real specific to any one event, but Dad always worked hard on the dairy, and Mom always was busy also, you know, with things around the house and at the dairy. But the one thing they always had time for and was our water skiing. We went water skiing just about every week of the summer. Went up to Pine Flat for the most part, to Kauai, and then we would take a trip when we were still in Chino. It's to Lake Mojave. Some of the most fun I've ever had was at Lake Mojave. Those are great memories. And then we did some trips to Colorado River, and now it is Lake Tulare. And anyways, that's just one thing that really stands out that I think has made a great impression on me, to make time for the fun things as well as work.
So we started, Doug, Bill, and I started in the dairy business in 1982, 3 single guys with virtually no overhead, no families, and so we got off to a pretty good start. And you know, you go in on a shoestring, so we were pretty concerned about the finances, but got off to a pretty good start. We were probably in the dairy business less than a year, and Bill felt confident enough to decide to get married. And of course, as partners, you don't discuss everything. We hadn't discussed that one, and when I heard that news, I thought, well, that's it. We're bankrupt now because he's going to have a wife to support, and we got to find a house to live in and all that other good stuff. And you know, rather naively, didn't factor in the fact that that woman could work too. So later on, I had underestimated what Lorraine brought to the table, and it was a net plus. And that's that lifelong experiences of learning by doing. So it worked out real well.
Occasionally, I guess one time I was interviewed and they said, well, if you had to tell other dairymen what's one of the better investments that you've made, what would it be? And mine was a bike, because I like to ride my bike around the dairy, and it's an economical form of transportation, and it's a good form of exercise, you know, good way to get around. And I've been preaching the gospel of the bike for a long time with very few converts for some reason. But anyway, there is a little bit of a hazard to a bike. You got to kind of watch where you're going sometimes. And I had an experience. It was kind of a foggy morning, and I was in my coveralls. I had been working on the dairy in the morning, and my bike it's like a beach cruiser type bike, pretty dirty. Got a basket on the front for collecting things. So anyway, I'd gone down the ditch bank to look at a field and found some trash and put it in my basket, and was riding down the ditch bank, came off the ditch bank right by my mailbox, and thought, well, I'll check my mail. And so I was opening my mailbox, and just as a CHP came by, and as soon as he came by, I saw his taillights come on. I thought, oh man, the guy must have got a call. And so then he flips on his lights, spins around in the road, comes tearing down. I thought, man, he's got an important call. He's hauling out here. Well, he stops right by me. Hey, buddy, what you doing? I said, oh, I'm just getting my mail. Your mail? Where do you live? I said, oh, that house right over there. Well, you got any ID? Well, no. I said, I can get my wallet out of the house. Well, you said we've been having a bunch of people stealing mail lately. I just thought I'd check. I said, well, hey, thanks, I appreciate it. But then he took off. So anyway.
Well, but, yeah, okay, but let's get the whole story here, because that's not the first time. And our brother here has been mistaken for a homeless person. It's been documented at least 3 times. And very likely very likely that's a result of him shopping at the thrift store all the time. So that's there's just a little more to it than that. And that thriftiness, you can take that only so far, and then you cross the line. So there we go.
Okay. Anyway,
Nothing personal, but yeah.
Okay.